You've kept with the horror theme with
I have.
Dead Air.
I have.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Dead Air's a little different. Still comedy, because comedy is something I love, but I don't like comedy on its own. I mean, the story behind Dead Air is I was shooting a teaser trailer for a feature called Angel of Saigon, which is another story, and we were shooting an airfield, and the guy who runs it was a friend of mine. He said, "There's this plane over there. It's like this Russian biplane that's got like room for about 10 people inside." And he said, "Do you want to film in that? You could take it up in the air, we'll fly it around, we'll do anything you want." I said, "Oh, that sounds amazing." And he took me to the plane, we had a look around, and my mind started wearing away with some ideas. He said, "The only condition is it has to be a zombie movie." And I'm saying, right, I take that and I will go away and I'll see what I can come back with. So I had this idea for a zombie film set on a small Russian biplane. And then I gave that to my colleague Peter Hearn, who I had written, I just met. He'd just done a horror feature film called Scrawl, which stars Daisy Ridley of Star Wars fame. And we'd met, and we were chatting about it. And he very much likes to write. So I said, "Look, I've got this idea. Would you write it for me? And we'll work as a team." And he said, yeah, I'll do that. And then after a day or two, he just come back to me and said, "How much of your original idea do you want me to keep?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, I don't mind." I said, "But the one thing that you do need to keep is the zombie element, because that's the stipulation of us being able to film on that plane." And he said, "Okay, I'm going to throw all of your ideas out the window and I'm going to come up with something completely different." And then that thus began the story that you now see. But up to about a halfway point, it was all set on a small Russian biplane. And I did say that to Pete, every time he sent me a draft, I said, "Mate, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We can't film on that Russian biplane. What you've got in this script is just not going to work." And then I was at the Exit 6 Film Festival, and there was these guys from a place called Black Hanger Studios in Alton, who they were doing a talk at the event, and I had a drink with them afterwards, and I was telling them about Dead Air. I said, "Oh, we're trying to put this film together," and he said, "We got a Boeing plane on our on site. Why don't you come down and have a look?" So I'm like, "Really?" He said, yeah, come on down. So I drove down there about a week or so later, and I just hooked. I said, I took Pete down there. I said, "Pete, we have to film on this plane. There's no, your script is big enough for this plane." So, then we changed from Russian biplane to a Boeing 737 or 47, whatever it is.
Even then, it looked as if it was pretty cramped for actual shooting, and you must have been in some strange positions.
Yeah, it was. The thing is that the plane was used in a film called I can't remember the name of it. It was where the plane lands on the Hudson.
Oh yeah,
Hudson River.
Yeah.
So they'd made a film. This was the plane they used, and it had been for a few weeks. It had been sat in water in a big tank. So it was just sort of left there to dry. So the inside stank. It was very musty, mouldy. So we had to get it cleaned out first when we got in there. So that didn't help. We then had to black out all the windows because it had to be at night, which took us a long while because obviously it's a long plane. So we were trying to put the blinds down where we could, but it was an old battered plane and a lot of the stuff didn't work or was missing. And so we sort of sellotape bin liners all around the outside. It was very, very cramped because it was not a big place, and we had lots of cables running under the seats for sort of microphones and lights. And I had a smoke machine all the time because I needed it to look sort of sweaty and musty. And then obviously with all the cast in there and the crew, and then the puppets as well. And every puppeteer had to have a monitor on their chest, so they could see what the camera was seeing. Yeah. So they were lying in really strange places with this monitor. Obviously, all the cables having to run everywhere. So what I ended up doing, I think we did a wireless transmission to a monitor. So I would sit as far away from the action as possible, so I could shout out what to do from there.
And breathe.
And breathe, yeah. So I had it quite cushy, but Tom Allen and his who was the DP and his crew, they didn't see daylight for the whole week, because when we shout cut and say, right, that's that scene done, all the crew or the cast would go off to the office that was there, and they'd go and have something to eat and a drink. But Tom would then just be resetting for the next shot. So he just never left the plane. And so we'd turn up and it was dark. He'd leave, it was dark. And we was doing that for 6 days.
That's how long the shoot took, 6 days?
Yeah. So we did 5 days at Black Hanger Studios, where we shot all the interior of the main plane sequence. And then the last day, day 6, was shot in a garden centre. There was a garden centre just down the road from Black Hanger Studios that, for whatever reason, has half a plane just sticking out the ground in the back. But the cockpit is in perfect condition. And we just needed to film the cockpit, because the cockpit in the plane at Black Hanger Studios was just been stripped out. There was nothing there. No instrumentation panels, no seats, nothing. So we were always a bit worried about how we were going to pull off the cockpit scenes. So when we found this other plane, we spoke to the guy. He let us have it for free for the day, and we just crammed everyone in, and we shot all of the cockpit scenes. And there's like a section between the cockpit and the main section of the plane. We shot those scenes there as well in that one day. So that was on the day 6, and then we all went home.
Pretty hectic.
Massively hectic. So absolutely loved it. I mean, it was an extremely incredibly challenging 6 days. I didn't sleep at all, because I'd probably getting about 2 hours sleep a night, because my mind just wouldn't stop whirring. And then because I had a lot of the cast staying at my house, so one of them, Charlie Bond, who has all the makeup put on her face because she turns into a monster, we'd have to wake her up at 5 a.m, sit her in my kitchen. The effects crew would turn up outside my house at 5 a.m. We'd all nip around, because obviously my wife and kids were all fast asleep, and they'd apply the makeup to a point that at 8 o'clock, when we can get into the studios, that we could get in and finish off. So they'd put on as much as they could from 5 till 7:45, get her in the car, drive her down, and put her, and then carry on whilst we were there.